Welcome to Speaking in Spoons with your host, Christina Brookman.
Hi, this is Christina Brookman, your host for Speaking in Spoons, a chronically ill podcast, with your handsome co-host, Dr. Nate Strauss. And
Hello.
today we have a very special episode of Personal Story with Disability with George Dennehy, who wrote our new theme song. And so, George, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to share and talk to you guys.
Great. And more information for our followers, George's website is up on our website, so you can learn more information about him there and follow him there. But George, I was so excited when I got to be on the DARS podcast. They were talking about you and telling me a little bit about your story. And I was like, he would be great to write our theme song. And then that happened. I was like, you need to be on the show and share your journey. So, for our followers, could you let them know a little bit about yourself and your journey while you're here?
Yeah, so my name again is George Dennehy. I live here in Richmond, Virginia, and I've had the chance to work with DARS a couple times over the years, and I'll share why they mean so much to me a little bit later on. But yeah, I'm happy to share my journey and my just experience living with a disability. So I was born with no arms, and I was born in Romania, actually, and put in an orphanage and kind of lived as an orphan for about the first year and a half of my life, and uh, really cast aside and essentially left for dead because I was disabled because I didn't have arms. But I was adopted by a very loving family here in the States, and they brought me into their home and their family and raised me to really not let my disability hold me back. And they really pushed me to be independent and figure out how to do things on my own and helped where they could and backed off when they felt they should. And I grew up just learning how to do everything with my feet and with my shoulders and with my mouth if I need to, and really just figuring out how I can do everything else, everything that everybody else does, just do it my own way. And I just do things differently. And that's kind of what I tell people is that I do everything that everybody else does. I just do things different. But
In
different
your own way.
doesn't mean less. Exactly. In my own
I
way.
love that different doesn't mean less. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So just in my own way, and that's kind of some of my growing up experience was really being pushed by my parents to just do daily things that I honestly didn't think I could do, or really thought I would need help with. And there are absolutely things I still need help with and can get help with. But the idea was there was let's figure out what I can let's see what I can figure out first, and then
What are
go from
maybe
there.
some daily acts of living that you could give us, like how you figured out your way of doing it? That I'm thinking like cooking for yourself, or
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of different things that people could hear, maybe some of the unique tools and ways that you found for yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, sorry, go ahead, Nick.
I was agreeing. Like I can't imagine. Like I saw you. So everyone should probably go see his TED talk where he like I just didn't. I saw that guitar laying on the ground. I was like, why is that guitar laying on the ground? It's like clearly he's going to use it. And then when you did, I was blown away because I can't play the guitar and I have hands, and it's just like I was. I mean, not to say like I was so amazed by that, and the fact. And when Christina told me that you wrote our music and that you didn't have arms, I was like, how? And but now I see like you are so musically inclined, and that's just that's just
So
such a gift.
gifted.
It's a
Yeah.
gift. Like you were wronged in one way, but you were gifted in other ways that just some people will never have, you know? It just
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. That musical ability is honestly something my parents noticed from very early on, from an early age, even before I really knew what that meant. I just always liked playing music. I was like playing on the piano. I liked singing and just coming up with tunes. That's something I always loved, and my parents noticed that and helped cultivate that. So they signed me up for music lessons at a very young age. I grew up playing classical music. I played the cello as a kid and all throughout high school. And yeah, I'm a firm believer that we all have gifts and talents, and even more so, we all have passions. And
Yes.
whether we have disabilities or not, I always say, spoiler alert, we all have disabilities. Everybody has a disability in some way or another. Um, but we're also all human. We all have passions and gifts and talents and things we can be good at. The question is, are we going to pursue that, and are we gonna let that shine? And that's something my parents really helped me be able to do.
That's wonderful that you have that support and that push. I think that support is everything, and that they notice that passion in you. How you said you
Yeah,
played the cello and all these instruments. How did you figure that out? What tools and accommodations did you end up using?
yeah. Figuring out the whole music thing is a really interesting story. We at the time we lived up in Connecticut, so we lived up in the
Okay.
Northeast, kind of a small town up in the Northeast, and very cute little town. And we went to a small church growing up, and in that church was a music teacher, who it was a pretty small like thing, homeschool group, that whole thing. And she taught a lot of the other kids, and she even taught some of my siblings, my older siblings. And when my parents approached her about teaching me, it kind of took her back a bit, because I don't think she's ever heard of anybody playing a cello or any instrument with their feet. But she didn't want to just say no. She didn't want to just say that's impossible. She also believes nothing's impossible, right? So what she did was she took some time. She basically told my parents, "I'm going to get back to you." And she taught herself how to play an instrument with her feet, just to see if it could be done, like physically, if that could even happen in some kind of
Right.
way. And she did, and she did figure out some very basic notes and Twinkle Twinkle Little Star with her feet, and showed my parents, showed me, look, it can be done. It may not sound good because it's coming from somebody with arms, but we could figure this out. So
Yeah.
that's what we did. We both of us kind of together worked together to figure it out. She was the teacher. She knew all the music. She knew all the stuff. But then she said, "But you're the one with the feet. You're the one with no arms. What would work for you? What feels comfortable?" And we started off just putting the cello on the floor, kind of, Nate, as you said, the guitar on the floor, kind of like that. And it was
right.
propped up on a pillow, so it was kind of angled so I could play.
Mm.
And then over time, we realized, I say we, but it was mostly my teacher. I was 7 years old at this point. So my teacher was the one kind of noting these things and noticing the way it sounds. And so she noticed that putting this cello on the ground really, what's the word, condenses the sound. So the sound isn't getting as much as you
Yeah,
could.
hold it
Right.
upright. Normally, with the hand-abled people would hold it like on their chest, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's sitting at an angle, and it's resonating. But for me, I'm putting this cello on a rug, and it's just not as efficient. But eventually, there's this little church I went to had a lot of amazing people. There's this engineer who went to the church, and he took some measurements of my cello and built this custom stand, basically, that would hold the cello up in midair, and the difference was incredible. So instead of me sitting on just a regular chair with the cello on the floor, I now sat on a stool, kind of like a bar
Okay.
stool, and the
Yeah.
cello is lifted up into the air.
Wow.
That's
So
really interesting.
yeah, and it's kind of, that's just one example throughout, my a very big example, I should say, of just innovating, kind of using
Yeah.
different ideas and seeing the challenge and figuring out kind of what we could do to make it better and make it easier, and just really help me achieve it, and be the best that I can be.
It sounds
Do you,
like you had a really great community. Sorry, Nate, that
yeah, do you
uh
think that the environment really that kind of allowed you to see things as possible, not impossible? Like you looked at the cello and you're like, I don't think I can do that, but the teacher comes along and says, you can do this. Let's try it. Like that kind of nurturing community was more powerful than, just feeling like you were helpless.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that, especially as a kid, especially as a young child who is very, kids are very, what's the word, impressionable. You know what I
yes.
mean? So especially as a young kid, when I kind of thought something was impossible, and something simple, earlier, Christina, you asked just kind of simple things. I learned I could take a cup and put the cup on the kitchen counter and then jump up on the kitchen counter and get a drink of water from the sink, things like that. Nowadays, I'm older, I'm an adult, so I sit on a stool and do all the cooking and
Right.
whatever, and pour my coffee. But that's when I was a kid. I
Do you
didn't
have
think I could do that.
attachments that help you do that, or how does that work?
Use your feet.
Yeah, just
Use
just
your
just
feet?
with my feet. Yeah, just kind of opening
Wow,
and grabbing the mug and pouring it, and
that's awesome. I
um,
have no coordinate. Well, I have no coordination with. I have muscular coordinations with my hands and feet, but that's really incredible that you've been able to work and do that for yourself. Yeah.
You said in
yeah,
your drive, is that you can also, you're driving?
yes, yeah. So I do drive too, and that's where DRS really comes into my life. Because that, I mentioned earlier, kind of being a kid, you're impressionable. I did have a really great support system. I had parents that really pushed me and encouraged me. I had a music teacher that I tell people when I give talks, because I do this for a living. I give talks and kind of talk to businesses and companies, and I say this music teacher really stepped into my shoes and met me where I was and helped walk with me to where my destination was learning this cello.
Right.
She really helped me and walked alongside me, and how important that is. And I know how blessed I was as a kid to have that, because not everybody has that. But there comes a point in each and every one of our lives when that decision and that just deciding, I'm going to make this work, I'm going to figure this out, I'm going to live life to the fullest, that becomes an internal decision for us. We can have all the support in the world, we can have all the help from other people, but at the end of the day, we are the ones living with our situations.
You
You
have to
know,
become
and
your own cheerleader.
The
yeah,
one.
exactly. And I absolutely came to that point in my life. The middle school and high school, those teenage years were really, really hard for me. They were really challenging, just emotionally. And I ended up in a really dark place. I felt really alone. I felt like nobody understood me. I felt like I was never going to amount to be anything. And I allowed myself to fall into a really just dark place internally.
Yeah.
And but I still had my music teacher. I still had my parents. They were still that support system that I had as a kid. But now I'm old. I was older, and that's I don't want to say that didn't matter. Um, but it was becoming time where the decision and I guess my future depended on me. You
Yeah.
know, um, and
And
eventually I did come to.
independence.
Yeah, exactly. And eventually I did come to a place where I realized that me not having arms, me being born this way, is not something I can control. It's
Right.
not something I can fix even, and I have to decide how I'm going to respond to that. And I realized that being negative about it, being hopeless, and feeling angry about life and all the questions that I have. I grew up in church. As I had questions to God, and I realized it's okay to not have all the answers. all we can do is decide what we're going to do with the time that's given to us and what we do have. And I started focusing on that. I started focusing on, you know what, I might not know why I was born like this. I might not know a lot of things, but I do know that I have 2 feet. I can play music, and I want to live a good life. So I kind of made that choice and decision. And I think I'm going on a rant here. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Nate and I, you're speaking to us because we talk about that grieving process that you kind of go through when you think of things that you wanted, or but then there's an acceptance part, and then, learning to love yourself and really be your support system, and just embracing what you do have and where you can go. So I really love what you're saying, because and also, having grown up in a church and your relationship with God, did you ever have, I think you were kind of speaking to this, but did you ever have like a crisis of faith when you were going through this process?
Yeah.
And what came of that, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. That's always a hard subject. It is a tough subject to think about, because I know for me, being in these years as a teenager, I was very angry. I was very angry with God, because I couldn't really wrap my head around why God would create me like this or make me like this. Like, why would God give me a harder life? And why would he make it so that I would be in school and get bullied and be picked on and not have any friends for so many years in middle school and in high school? Why would he do this and why would he do that? And I think it's very easy for all of us. And of course it is, because we struggle. Life is not perfect. Life is not a smooth ride all the time. It's not easy all the time. So it's very easy to get angry and to say, why? How could you do this to me, God? How could you allow this to happen? How could you allow that to happen? So yeah, I did have that kind of that doubt and that hurt, and feeling like maybe I was a mistake. Maybe I was an accident. Maybe I've been forgotten about and abandoned, because I was praying for arms. I was praying to be normal, and I wanted a miracle to happen in my life. But I tell people, and I truly believe this, that I think the miracle did happen. I did have a miracle in my life, and there's a miracle on the inside, and I wouldn't trade that for any arms ever. Because my entire perspective changed. I wasn't given arms like I was praying for. I was given a totally different perspective on life, and I was given a whole new purpose. Which I think is so far more valuable than a couple of arms. And when my perspective changed, when my attitude changed, everything around me changed. I don't really know exactly how that happened. I don't know if the bullying stopped, or if I just didn't even notice it anymore, or things like being out in public and being so nervous and embarrassed that people are going to be looking at me or pointing at me, or whatever, kids asking questions to me, things like that. I don't know if that, I don't think that ever stopped really, but I think the way I perceive it and the way I responded to it completely changed when my whole perspective changed. So that's that whole crisis of faith and questioning God. It is a hard thing, because I'm still here. I still don't have arms. Nothing about my physical self is different than it was, 10, 12 years ago. But my whole entire heart is completely different. And I do believe that a miracle took place for me. And now I don't question. Now I don't doubt, because I think there's a bigger story being written, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
And you are here for a purpose.
And I believe that
you prove that every day. Yeah, we're all. I really believe, like, disability has almost been a weird blessing in my life, in that it opened up my perspective, like you're talking about. It's taught me what love is, because the people that really care about you stay, and are there and are supportive, and the ones that like it shows me what's important in life, and what I need to be focused on. Like the superficial things are not important. And, love and community and all of this other stuff is so much more. And I don't know if I knew that as much before I became really, really sick. So,
Yeah.
Well, life is what I've learned is life or God is the harshest of teachers. He gives you the test first, and then you learn the lesson. Like that, I mean, that's just how I feel about it. Life put this obstacle in front of you,
right.
which you think is a horrible thing, and you're like, why is this happening? But then when you come on the other side of it, you're like, oh, okay. I like that the triviality of things. Like a lot of my friends and relatives get so upset about things. Like I have a friend that has this, she's going to visit someone, like a relative, and she's all upset that her relative doesn't want to do her itinerary. And I just think to myself, I just see it differently. I was like, isn't the whole point going to see your relative? Like, what does it matter what you do? Like, it just see the, the forest for the trees instead of just this thing you have to like navigate. I don't know. I just changes, right? Like you were saying.
Yeah,
So
I think.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. No, I was just agreeing. I was saying, I think that it's all about that perspective,
Yeah.
But that
I love when you say that test thing, Nate. That always is great.
Yeah, but I mean that perspective doesn't change until you've had that hardship, and that's the rub. Like that's the double-edged sword. That, like, unless you have that hardship, you're just going to keep going along, being upset about the tiniest of stuff.
Yeah, like you said, it's coming out to the other side and being able to look back and say, man, I grew through that. I made it through that hard time, and I can almost be thankful for those hard times. So now I look back at my life in those years in middle school and high school, and I'm thankful for those times because they really taught me so many things about friendship. They taught me about things that I didn't get as a student, as a kid. Like other kids coming up to me and talking to me or inviting me to come sit with them. Like those are things that I kind of missed out on for a long time. And now I'm thankful that I did, because now I realize what that feels like. And I can go to schools and do assemblies and tell kids, like, I know what it's like to feel alone. I know what it's like to sit at lunch alone. I know what it's like to be made fun of. And I want to tell you that if you feel like that, you're not alone. I know exactly what that's like. But also I want to come and say, hey, to everybody else, don't let anybody feel like that. Don't let anybody sit alone at lunch unless they really want to. Some kids, I mean, totally, some kids they're just not social, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But sometimes.
But don't isolate people.
Yeah.
And we do that a lot. We tend to isolate things we're scared of or we don't know. And it's not just kids, it's adults. And I think it's great that you're doing that you're speaking to all of these people and helping them be aware. I think, where do you see yourself going? Like, what for your future? Like, what do you want for your future?
Yeah, that's a really great question.
Loaded question.
I think for me, just to continue, what I've been doing, it's been a very, very interesting ride so far. So I guess a little backstory. I graduated high school and just started doing music, just chasing it as a career, and it went well for a bit. I was playing a lot of churches and youth groups and stuff like that, and it worked out for a 19-year-old kid, 20-year-old kid. And then it slowly over time morphed into also just sharing my story and talking and encouraging and talking about challenges and talking about all this stuff that we're talking about. And that's what I've been doing. I'm almost 30 now, and I have my own family. I have 2 kids and I'm married, and I love being able to do what I do, and I do it full time. And there's been ups and downs, and COVID was for sure a down. That's one of those times where that perspective. I don't know what the future holds, but I believe in who holds the future, right? You know, we know that saying. Maybe we've heard that before. Kind of a corny saying, I'll admit, but it's true. So yeah, there have been ups and downs, and as we sit here and think about the future, I just hope to keep doing this, to keep being able to share in any capacity. It's always an honor, and I never get bored of it. Uh, I never feel like it's ever wasted. So yeah.
Beautiful.
What's your favorite instrument? I'm just curious of all the things that you play.
Guitar.
Oh man, I would have to say my favorite to play is guitar, but piano is definitely up there and one of my favorite instruments to really listen to. I think. So
How do you play the piano? Like, how do you like? Normal piano playing requires a foot and two hands, like because you have to press the and do all the, like. How do you do it like the same way you drive, like where one foot's down on the pedal and the other foot is up here on the keys?
Yeah, you know, anytime I've really played the piano, which isn't a whole lot, I don't really use that pedal at the bottom.
Okay.
Much at all. I kind of just hold the chord, you know, and then switch to the next chord somewhat seamlessly, as you can make it without having the pedal at the bottom.
Find it a little limiting, I guess, for piano?
Yeah. Oh
like
yeah, definitely. I mean, piano is one of those instruments, and the drums. You know, I like playing drums too.
You play the holy shit.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I can't play the drums. Okay.
But yeah, I mean that's the reality of it. Like you said earlier, Christina, just accepting ourselves, and then B, accepting our limitations too, and accepting that we are different. You know, there's that fine line of, you know, really believing that things can be achieved, things can be figured out, nothing's impossible, things like that. There's a fine line between that, but then also realizing too, like there are limits. You know, like obviously I have two limbs. Compared to 4.
And that's okay too. Like that's
exactly.
To get to that point of this doesn't make me less.
Yeah, it doesn't make me less. It just makes me who I am. So it makes me me. So yeah, playing
I love
piano,
that you talked about people meeting you on your level. Like I think that is so important for people, and taking the time to kind of learn how it's like for you. Like that she took the time to do the instrument and try it as you would have to do it to figure out how it, because I think so many times people get stuck in the overwhelmed by other people's limitations that and how it's different from theirs. But you know, a simple, you know, Google search, research about what they have, ask them questions. Like I don't know about you, I never get offended when people ask me questions, because that means they care. They care to ask that question. And I think it's part of our job and our responsibility to help with the education of things like that, because that helps everybody be more comfortable and accommodating to everybody. I don't know if accommodating is the right word, but
no, I think you're right. You're right on target with that. I mean, that's being able to receive people's questions with a good attitude is a huge thing. You know, because that's one of the things for me was I used to hate being asked questions because I was embarrassed. You know, and I was ashamed and nervous. But then realizing that people asking questions is because they care, or is because they are curious, or you know, they do want to know more. Like that is a good thing. And people meeting me on my level has helped me so much in my life, and with DARS, with DARS, and me learning to drive at Woodrow Wilson Rehab Center and doing all that. You know, I had people helping me and meeting me on my level and believing in me too, even when I didn't believe in myself. And that goes a long way too. And having received all that for myself as a kid, as a teenager, I realize how important that is, and that's something that I always aim to share for other people too. You know, I can be that support for somebody else, just like people have supported me. and I
Yeah.
can meet people where they are. And anytime somebody's struggling with something, we can care. I say quote care from a distance where, oh man, that sounds hard. Good luck. Or even like, that sounds hard. I'll pray for you. Or we can really get in the thick of it with them and meet them where they are and say, how can I help? What can I do?
Yeah.
If you need somebody to talk to, I am here for real.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
Did you have any more questions, Nate?
Well, I have a couple questions. So, like,
Yeah.
one of the things I found so powerful about that TED Talk is that your music was like an expression of your tragedy and your resilience and your like your perseverance. And I think that was, is that something that, like, that you're writing your own music, I think is one of the coolest things. Like, not the fact that you're playing, but the fact that you're putting your own voice into these songs, I think is just the most amazing. Like, what do you, like, if you, maybe, I don't know if this is a great question, but if you could pick one of your favorite songs, and we'll probably figure out a way to play it on the show, like,
Yeah.
what would it be?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. That's always something that I believe is authentic. Like when I'm playing music, and I want people to see that it's authentic too, because anytime I get the chance to play for people and sing for people, it is me showing really the fruit of all those years of practice, of all those years of pain, of all those years of triumph and perseverance. Like you said, and it's an honor, and it's always so exciting for me to be able to show that to people, and then really in them seeing me play guitar with my feet, I hope they can say, hey, that thing that I've been giving up on or holding myself back on, maybe I can give it another shot and do it too. Because if he can play that guitar with his feet, maybe I can do this or do that, right? And I think my favorite song has got to be that one that I played at the TED Talk, which is Not Abandoned. It's an original song I wrote, and I initially, that's something I love about music is a song can be about one thing, but then it can turn into a song about many things. Mm-hmm. So I originally wrote this song about adoption, because I was adopted. My life was saved really by adoption. If I had not been adopted, I would not be here right now in this life at all. So my life was physically saved by adoption, but really the message of the song is that message of you might feel alone, you might feel abandoned, you might look around at the world and think that everyone's forgotten you, but you're not. You're not abandoned, you're not alone, and there are people who care. There are people who could care. It's just about opening up and being willing to take that in and to find those people and to find that community, like we said, having support, having community. So I think that message transcends way more than just adoption by itself. So
it does.
That's my favorite song for sure.
You could really
and it is online too. So if you mentioned wanting to maybe find it,
we'll play
we'll
it.
add it in.
I might have the file. I might have the file for it somewhere. I could just send you guys.
That would be great, and we could add it in if that's okay with you.
Of course, yeah.
Second question, less emotionally provocative. Please just briefly explain how DARS, shout out to DARS, has helped you with being disabled.
Yeah, so I mean, in high school, being a 15-year-old kid here in Virginia or 15 and a half, you get to that point where it's, oh, I can get my learners now, and getting your learner's permit is pretty easy to do, from what I remember, even for me, like even for somebody without arms. And I guess maybe the thought was, okay, learner's permit, no harm, no foul. Like he can say he has his learners. But then when it really started to turn into, okay, well, I want to learn to drive. I want to be able to drive. I want to take driving lessons here at the school, because I guess, yeah, there's driver's ed in public schools. Mm-hmm. So that's what I was, just like everybody else. I was like, okay, driver's ed starting soon. Here we go. And the teacher, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but basically said, yeah, not you. basically.
Oh,
Um,
You're like,
but
screw that.
I mean, and maybe that's just how I interpreted it because I was a moody, angry 15-year-old kid.
As
But it was
we all.
basically we basically like we can't we can't have you be a part of this program basically. And I had to go to Woodrow Wilson, which is a big Woodrow Wilson rehab center in Fishersville, a couple hours away from Richmond, and that's where I went. So I worked with DRS and worked with a driving instructor there, and it was a long time, a long couple of it was like over a year of going to Woodrow Wilson and taking these driving lessons, and yeah, doing this every week or so, but it ended up working out. Ended up completing it, taking the driver's test with the same teacher. So basically, it wasn't just like a random uh, DMV person. It was the same teacher I've been working with, and it was a great experience. She was always so kind to me, always believed in me. She also always pushed me. Even I remember very vividly the first time behind the wheel with her, I went forward instead of going backward. So I went forward and hit the parking meter instead of just reversing out of the parking spot. And
yeah.
she still let me. She said, "It's okay, just keep going." And it worked out. So
The only kid that did that.
what's that?
I bet you weren't the only kid that did that. Like, it's
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm sure I wasn't, but I was so nervous when I did though, because I thought, oh, there
Yeah.
it is. I thought like would be her excuse, basically, to say, oh, this
To
they
not
too
let you
dangerous.
do it.
You're not getting a license, But no, not at all. So I got my license. It's a special certificate license kind of thing where legally this is what I had to do to earn my license. And it was kind of a pain in the butt a little bit because it's Fishersville. It's a couple hours away. I had to miss school at an important year, a junior year of high school. Missed a lot.
Oh
Had to make
wow.
up a lot of work, But it's just one of those things where just gotta bite it and do it, And I did. I got a perfect score on the test. And for reward, I got to have my first drive-through experience with me behind the wheel, first of many, and it's a blast. It's so much fun every single time because you go into the drive-through and I have my foot on the wheel and then I put my foot out the window to give them my money, and doing that with the teacher. I said, I like this. I want to do this more, and I still do it a lot. So
That's cool.
Yeah,
There's freedom in driving. There's such a freedom. Yeah.
there is, and so yeah, I mean, without DARS and Woodrow Wilson and them believing in me and kind of paving that way for me to get my license, I wouldn't have a license. I wouldn't drive, and I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now, which requires a lot of driving sometimes. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really thankful, and just over the years being able to work with them in different capacities, different videos, and then I wrote the song "Work Makes the World Go Round" for them.
Mhm.
It's just been such a pleasure to work with Rick Sizemore and being on his podcast a couple times too. And
Yeah.
I love all of them. I've been able to go
Can't
back.
speak more highly of DARS. Like they've been one of those resources for me that is just, they always believe in me. They always put, like you say, and it's so lovely to know that there is that out for people.
Yeah. And they're so helpful too, and just they want to be a resource and support
Yeah.
for people with disabilities, and they have helped me in different ways over the years. And when I first moved into my own place, they were, they reminded me that they are there to help if I ever need
Right.
anything, or something, a big challenge comes up in the way, and thankfully nothing too challenging has really come up with living alone. And of course I am married now, and all that good stuff. So if there is something up in the counter that's up in the cabinet that's a little high, I can ask the one with arms, hey, can you reach out for me? So it all works out. But yeah, I mean, DRS and Rick and all of them there, I love them all very much. And It's I'm actually gonna see Rick on Monday to do another quick little video.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, he's great. Uh, have you ever, this is kind of going back, but have you ever been back to Romania ever to experience it?
Yeah. So yeah, I did have the chance to go back to Romania back in 2012. So I was 18, and this is around the same time when my music career started, and some big things kind of happened for me musically, and I was able to do a CD in Nashville and play
Wow.
with the Goo Goo Dolls at a big concert. So a lot of different things were happening in the span of just a couple weeks. So it was pretty wild how things just blew up. And one of those opportunities was to go to Armenia and be on TV there and play music and talk about adoption and just talk about my story, and then go and meet my biological family and meet them in person, which was an incredible experience. I had seen them throughout the years in pictures, and vice versa. They were able to see me a little bit. It was just very beautiful to meet them all in person. So there was my biological parents, and then 4 sisters that I have still in Romania, and
Oh,
I
cool.
keep up with them and talk to them sometimes, and send pictures back and forth, and it's very, very cool.
That's really, um, I think it's a beautiful thing, adoption. That I'm sure it means a lot to them knowing what your adoptive parents have been able to provide and help you with resource wise, and see the wonderful life and career that you built for yourself.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was very meaningful for them too.
Yeah, I really think it was, because for them, it wasn't so much of a matter of they just didn't want me. It was more of a
Right.
matter of just the state of the country. The Just somebody like me in that country doesn't have much of a chance,
Exactly.
really,
Yeah.
and they knew that, and they were super poor when I was born, and that was just the decision they had to make, you know. And thankfully, it did all work out, and for me to come back, you know, in their eyes, as a rock star is kind of what they kept saying, because
Oh,
I just play music, I did play the guitar, and I'd already played with the Goo Goo Dolls, so they saw like a video of me playing with
so
this
you are
band
a
on the
rock
stage.
star to them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
So
that's
yeah,
a rock star.
they were really proud, and yeah, just so happy that just how it turned out to be.
That's exciting. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, George, for joining us today. And like I said, followers, we're gonna have his website up on our website at www.speakinginspoons.com, where you can learn more about George, listen to his TED Talk, and follow his music. And we'll also add your song to this episode so that they can hear your favorite song.
perfect.
Thank you. And
Yeah,
stay tuned for Nate and I to do our after party. Thank you so much. Welcome back to the after party. This is your host, Christina Brookman, and Dr. Nate Strauss. So that was an interesting interview. Share your thoughts, Nate.
I mean, that was awesome. Like, I feel inspired. Like, just like I'm going through my own shit and just hearing his story. And I like, he's been dealing with this since birth, like
Yeah.
that kind of ability. It's just not something like you'd wish on your worst enemy, but like with him, he's turned it into something incredible. And I think
Yeah.
that what's inspiring about the story, not the fact that he's doing things that able people do, but just that he's taken what would feel like a death sentence and turning it into something beautiful. You know?
No, I think that's great. And the lesson is, I think that I'm taking from this is, really just try to make the best of what you're given. Um, and that it's also okay to be angry about it too. Like everybody has those angry periods, everybody cries, everybody questions the universe and has crisis of faith, and it's okay to go through that. Just don't live there. And I think he's done a great job of just really living the life that he wanted to live, despite it, challenges and adversities, and is doing a great job also going back and helping, communities understand how they could better help other people with disabilities, by not, children, realizing to talk to other children and not isolate kids and not bully. I think, which is a hard concept as a kid, but when it's wonderful. It's great to have somebody going out there and spreading that message, not just for the kids that need to see him, and realize they too can have the life they want. But also to the kids that maybe have been bullying or something that might make them think twice about what their behavior. And I do think kids learn that a lot from adults. So him speaking to companies and employees, that is also so important. And I loved what he said too about it's also okay to not be able to do everything. Like to have that push to want to do everything and try to do everything, but it's okay to accept that there are going to be things you can't do, because we get stuck in that thing of trying to prove we can do everything, and it's okay to be who we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay to go slow. Like I'm sure it
Yeah.
was challenging to learn how to play the cello with your
Yeah.
feet.
I can't even imagine.
I don't think he was a natural at cello playing. Like it was like clearly he has some musical talent. Like that's unquestionable, but just like
Right.
learning to do that probably took some skill.
Yeah. Well, and I love that he credits his support system too, because that I know people out there with disabilities will realize how incredibly important a support system is. But I think it's also important for the people around us to realize how important that support system is, because look at what a life someone can lead if they have the support and people that are willing to help, and help him get to what he wants to do, instead of just go, that's too much for me. I can't do that. I bet they have family that can help. A lot of people will do that.
Well, his story about learning to drive, he met some of those barriers. Like the first driving instructor he ran into, like, this ain't happening, kid. I'm sorry. And he said, like, whoop. And then he kept moving. Like just moved. He just went around that person. It took a little extra effort, like a couple hours drive out of the way, but he ended up getting what he wanted.
Right.
It's just a lot of closed-minded
It's a pivot,
people.
like you said in that episode with Eric, when you were talking about we just have to pivot with those things.
Oh, I mean, you make a plan, the plan goes to shit, then you make a new plan.
Yeah.
That's just how plans go.
Yeah, I think that's for everybody.
Yeah. And I like to say, and I heard this in a cartoon, I just remembered that impossible is just another kind of possible.
I like that.
Yeah. There's no barriers. Like there was, what was that story about the guy that broke the 5-minute mile? Like they had been saying that it was impossible for a person to do it, and then one guy did it, and then everyone started doing it. It's that whole like mental block that's a huge factor in achieving something, that if you can't see it, you definitely can't do it.
Well, and I love what he talked about too, that it wasn't even the physical barriers and things. It was really his mental barrier of changing his attitude, and that was the biggest miracle of all. Was and we talked more about that afterwards, after we recorded, that was really his personal growth and gift, was learning, to love himself as he was. and to just keep going and you know, strive for things that he was passionate about, but also accept the things that he may not like realistically be able to do, and that was okay. And I loved hearing about his trip to Romania, and he talked more about it afterwards. He was talking about
Yeah.
how his mom kept saying, you know, when they finally got to for the first time, his mom kept saying something in Romanian. And he asked the translator what it was, and you know, and she said, you know, sorry, please don't hate me. And he realized, you know, how much guilt she had been holding for giving him up for adoption, but that he loved that he was able to tell her that he didn't hate her, and also thank her because they did the right thing, you know, and they recognized they wouldn't be able to care for him where they were, and he was able to get the care and love and support that he needed. And that was such a beautiful gift for his biological family to do. And it was also a beautiful gift for him to be able to tell them that he was grateful for that, you know. I just
Yeah.
love.
Yeah. It was a
Yeah,
great kind of ending to that story arc, you know.
yeah, yeah.
And
And
that's
now you
just,
guys are going to create music together.
well, I don't, well, we'll see. I
We'll see.
think so. That song's been with me for years now.
Yeah,
Be nice. I tried to get it with instruments before, but I just didn't have the money to afford it, you
right.
know? So we'll see. I think George is probably way better than that guy at that studio was too. So it might actually be pretty cool. So stay tuned.
Yeah,
We'll have a Speaking in Spoons exclusive music video.
jam session.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's always exciting when you meet people that share similar passions, and you know, I think that's cool.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just unexpected how much, and definitely everyone should check out that YouTube video because I thought that was inspiring just to see. It's like, what's that guitar doing? Like, why is that guitar on the floor? And then he finally rewards it by like
right.
playing, like it just, but like he told his story, and it just then he's like, I'll just play this awesome song with my feet.
Yeah,
Just like, okay, yeah,
yeah.
anything's possible.
It kind of makes you sit back too and realize, wow, you know, I can keep trying too. Then, you know,
Yeah, be thankful that we have what we have, you know,
yeah,
because it could be worse. Like there's a guy, I forget his name, but he has no arms and no legs. He does motivational speaking. And he was born that way too, and it's just like these two men have taken what would seem like a huge negative and a huge like death blow to their lives and turn it into something so positive and so fulfilling and magical and wealthy, like a wealthy
yeah.
practice. There,
He's got a great life, you know. I think that's
right?
wonderful. And I think there's a lot we can learn from his personal growth journey and his positivity, you know, positive. And I think there's a lot the community can learn and other communities can learn about how important it is to invest in these type of resources for people, because um look at how much it has helped him achieve his dreams and his passions and live a fulfilling, like have a great quality of life, you know. um and it is important to invest in resources for people with disabilities, um you
Yeah.
know, of all kinds of disabilities. And I think we forget what
Well,
a
I think
plethora, a lot, he said everybody is disabled, you know, and it really is becomes like the accessibility, you know, that limits that our abilities, you know.
yeah, I think the paradigm needs to shift because this disabled thing is, you know, a bad word, and people like to keep it in like a locked room behind closed doors, and they don't like to see it or discuss it. It's just
Right.
not something that, that's why I like this podcast, because we're talking to these people, and how many people feel like they're alone when they're going through, like I felt alone
Yeah.
going through what I went through, and I'm sure you did too. And it's just, you're not, like,
We're not alone.
this country's full of sick people, and we're all trying to make things right. And I think we need to wake up and realize that we're not by ourselves, and this is something that a lot of us are going through.
But I think talking about it, like you said, is the key too. Like like at first he was uncomfortable talking about it because he was embarrassed and ashamed. Um, but there is nothing to be, that's what we have to realize. There's absolutely nothing to be embarrassed or ashamed of. And if we can work on that personally within ourselves and find that comfort level and be comfortable talking about it, it is so important to be having these conversations and answering questions for people. You know, I think it's I disability is not a dirty word. Like, you know, I own my disability, and there are a lot of people, especially with invisible disabilities like we have had, or
Yeah.
in rare disorders, that have to almost fight for recognition that they are sick. You know, I was reading an article just the other day of a woman with my disorder, with Ehlers-Danlos, that died. She died in her 30s just recently, going years to fight for treatment and for recognition of her disorder, and was told for so many years that she was faking it, you
Yeah.
know, and Munchausen's and all this stuff. And that has got to stop. We've got to stop telling people they're faking things just because we don't know, you know, just because the doctor doesn't know what the answer is. Then it doesn't necessarily mean it's psychological. You know, send them to other experts, send them to Mayo or somebody. I don't know. Like, but if you don't know, don't say it's in their head. I think that's laziness.
Yeah.
And it can cause people to die, you know, and that's, and not just die like physically, but you know, deep depression and all of this stuff, families leave them, you know, because families will believe the doctors and think that this person is crazy, and then, you know, it's just, it's very isolating. So disabilities needs to stop being a dirty word. We need to get comfortable talking to each other, asking questions. I admit this is taboo. I don't like the whole word ableism, because I feel like it makes being like a normie, like we talk about or whatever, like it makes that dirty. Like we're almost isolating them, and we're trying to make them feel bad for the fact that they don't have what we have. And really what it needs to be is stop, like, that's more isolation. It's more separation. If we are constantly going, well, that's ableist, that's this, why don't we just spend time educating and focus on the positive and stop scaring people away? If you make it negative and you shout at them for the things that they're doing wrong, all they're going to do is be turned off, and they're not going to want to learn, you know?
When you try to throw stuff in people's faces, they get turned off.
Exactly. Like there's got to be a better way that we can have those conversations without being so accusatory. And I know, like, I am guilty of that myself, and it's something I work on. So, I don't know. I think as a community, we just need to do better with that.
Yeah.
But
Try not to do this us versus them sort of mentality.
yeah,
And like we are doing this together, you know?
yeah. But
I mean, if I didn't have my family, I think I would probably be living on the street or dead.
yeah,
'Cause
same. If
when
I didn't have my mom, I know I would be.
right,
And right, it's just me and mom. And that's hard because she's elderly and sick herself. So that makes it very, very difficult,
Yeah. Well, hurry up and move up here so we can, join forces.
I'm working on it.
All right.
On it. Speaking in spoons, traveling,
Yeah.
speaking in spoons.
Then we go.
Working to move where I have more transportation might be a little bit easier for me.
And then we got to go on the road with George.
George, yes, and LaRue, George and
And
LaRue on the road.
LaRue play an instrument?
No, but he's his truck. He could drive us on our tours.
You want to tour in a truck? Okay.
Why not?
I didn't say no. I'm just saying.
I just like LaRue on the road. With Speaking in Spoons jam sessions, followed by D Cubed with Eric. I just love meeting all these people and hearing their stories. It's really, making connections and it really does make me not feel alone too.
Yeah, developing this virtual community when we can't have like a physical one for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hope for our listeners, I hope it makes you not feel alone as well. Hear George and hear us. You are not alone. And we look forward to talking to you again soon. And save your spoons.
If you want to contact us, please send a DM or email to speakinginspoons@gmail.com with any stories you have or would like to interview with us on any of our upcoming topics. And check out our website for all of our upcoming episodes and what's happening in the Speaking in Spoons community at www.speakinginspoons.com. Thank you for listening to Speaking in Spoons, and have a great day.
Every day, every hour, wondering if you'll make it out. You've been here for as long as you can remember, trapped inside this hollow shell. You're not abandoned, you're not alone. There is a family that wants to make you their own. You're gonna find out on this broken road. There is a pathway that's gonna lead you home, lead you home. You were left in a wasteland with a voice yet to be heard. 10 years later, you're still fighting.